Hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Mike Brusca. I'm a partner at Davison Brusca, and for a long time now, I've just focused my practice on nursing home neglect and abuse cases. And I do this podcast because most of my clients either never understood what was going on with their loved one, they didn't understand the risks that were there that the facility should have known about, that they couldn't have known about, or they didn't know what else they could do. And I also find a lot of my clients feel really powerless in those situations. And so my goal with these podcasts is to give information, and information is power, and then you can go effectively advocate for your loved one. Now, today I want to talk about something very serious. These are elopements. Now, to be clear, when I first heard that term, I didn't understand in what context that would be with a nursing home, right? Elopements were a romantic thing that some of my less thoughtful friends pursued, or maybe they just wanted to avoid the cost of expensive weddings. Maybe they were more thoughtful, who knows? But at any rate, elopements in nursing homes are very different. An elopement in a nursing home is when someone leaves the facility. Now, I have to tell you, elopements are very serious. There is no defense to an elopement. All right. I'm just going to repeat that. There is no defense to an elopement. There is no set of facts where it is acceptable for someone in a nursing home for sure and in an assisted living facility suffering from cognitive impairment should be able to leave the building. There is always a procedure for taking a person out of a building. You sign them out and you sign them back in, and there's an assessment when they leave and there's an assessment when they come back. That's a good facility. That's how they do it. It's not unusual to take a loved one out of the facility if they can do it. If you have a parent or spouse who really suffers primarily cognitive impairment, you want to bring them out for holidays or just something like getting ice cream. I've had tons of clients do this. This is different. This is where a person just walks out of the building. And I'm telling you, this is a very serious issue. They need to generally notify the state. They need to call the police. This is all hands on deck when this happens, because when people who suffer from cognitive impairment walk out of a building, they are in grave danger. Now, currently we have several of these cases. Elopements does not mean you just walk out the door. I have them. But I also have cases where people go through windows. Now, these cases are really troubling to me. When the person goes out a window, and I have a few of them right now, they are catastrophic and really ugly deaths. The thing about it that's shocking to me is I travel for work, I stay in hotels. You can't even open a hotel window more than 4 inches. The devices to prevent this from happening cost maybe $1 on Amazon, maybe $5. Whatever it is, it's a minimal cost. So, when I talk about elopements, I don't mean just walking out the front door. I mean people who go out the window. And I will tell you that people suffer from cognitive impairment who are physically able will not make good decisions. And they will believe that they can get down multiple stories when they cannot. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about elopements. Now, it's important to understand if your loved one is at risk for elopements, there better be an assessment for this upon admission. You will see a document, or you should be able to see a document, and you will see this mainly if you have a loved one who is ambulatory, that is, they can walk, even if they suffer from. Usually, the worst combination is they're ambulatory, but they suffer from severe cognitive impairment. And understanding that this risk exists is generally not a shock to the family. My grandfather was a wanderer when he had Parkinson's disease. I remember walking around the neighborhood trying to find him. That was one of the primary causes. He wound up in long-term care. So this generally is not a shock to people. It's usually one of the main reasons they wind up in long-term care, because it's not safe for them to be home on their own, because they just leave and get lost, and who knows what can happen. So there should be an assessment for this. If They weren't at risk before, but they become at risk. The facility knows this. And I got to tell you, this is not some unusual thing that shouldn't be on their radar. This is one of the top things they need to be worried about when they have cognitively impaired people that are ambulatory. So, what can you do, or what can you talk to the facility about if you do have this risk with your resident? Okay, number one is, and this is the core of pretty much all my podcasts, is staffing levels. It's primarily about supervision. All facilities will have someone at the front desk right by the doors. So it shouldn't, and it should never be unmanned. So there should always be a person there so that a person cannot just walk through the lobby and out the building. The doors should always be alarmed. Those are doors in the staircases. I have had cases where staff, usually ones who probably smoke, they prop the door open, and that can be a real problem. So if you see that in your facility, I would bring that to staff's attention, that this door is not shut, and it should be. I've had facts where people walked through doors with alarms, but if there's nobody paying attention, then it's missed, and you get really bad outcomes. Normally, there's an outdoor space as well. It's either a courtyard in the center, or perhaps it's attached to the side of the building or the back of the building. That needs to be enclosed, right? It's not a prison, but at the same, there will be a gate, but that gate needs to be locked, okay? Because you can't have people who can just go outside and then walk out the gate, right? In particular, when you have people outside, usually they have to be supervised, but a lot of facilities will just say, oh, well, we see them through the window or something like that. That's not good enough, okay? If you got people with cognitive impairment, you need to be out there with them, mainly to prevent falls and things of that nature, but to this end, it needs to be a safe space, and that means that needs to be locked. So staffing is key and supervision is key. There's another device called a Wander Guard. Now, this is not expensive. It's not difficult to get. It basically goes around the wrist or the ankle, and it's akin to when you go to a retail store and they have tags that prevent shoplifting. When you pass through the two poles, it'll sound an alarm. Wander guards, in essence, do the same thing. So this way, if the person is at risk for elopement, once they pass through, it'll sound an alarm immediately and tell the staff, you got to get there. How they got to the front door in the first place isn't really clear. That needs to be addressed, but at least you can get them before they get too far. Other strategies I've seen employed include putting dark mats in front of elevators because people from cognitive impairment do not like walking on dark mats, so they're not inclined to take the elevators that way. Additionally, I've seen facilities that will put a bus stop out in front of the facility. So this way, if the person leaves and they want to take the bus to where they think they're going, they'll just find them sitting there at the bus stop. I've seen that one as well. And of course, devices on the windows to keep you from opening them enough that you can get out of them, right? There's nothing wrong with a window that can open partially. It actually is a real bonus for a lot of people, but it can't be big enough that you can get through it. And I will tell you some of the measures I've seen where they try to prevent that from happening were like a screw in the door jamb. Okay, well, or the window jamb. Okay, that's not going to work. All right. When my kids were in first grade, they could have sorted that one out. There are devices you can get on Amazon that will work to do this. So if you are concerned about this and your resident is on the second, third, or fourth floor, ask and get an answer to it, because I'm telling you, people do go out the windows and it's catastrophic. So I know it's uncomfortable to be an advocate sometimes for your resident, but making sure that they are in a safe environment where that window cannot open to that extent could be the difference between life and death. So, but like I said, it really comes down to good planning for care, accurate assessments, and good supervision. And in well-staffed facilities where they're spending the money on care, that's what you're going to see. So if you do have this risk with your resident, make sure that there's a care plan for that. When you go to the care plan meetings, you ask about it. And in these ways, you can advocate to keep your loved one safe. So that's what I have to say about elopements today. I hope you found it informative, and thanks for listening.